So I wanted to do a video tonight to talk about the new laptops and desktops that Apple's come out with using the new Apple Silicon M1 processor. So I've been doing a little bit of research and a little bit of thinking about this, and I'm actually really excited about the new system on chips that Apple's come out with. If you look at the architecture, in theory, it should be a really nice processor because what they've done is they've taken a lot of the components, for instance, normally like a GPU, RAM, some of the other chips that they're using have all been combined onto a single piece of silicon. So you don't have any of the slowdowns that you normally have by going through like a bus. So that being said, as excited as I am about the new processors, I don't know if it's something that I would upgrade to right now if I was a software engineer. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and a lot of it depends on the type of software engineering that you're doing. So in my day job, I do a lot of mobile development. My company, we build software not only that runs in the server, but mainly for mobile devices such as iOS, iPads, and Android devices. So right out of the box, the chipset is actually very similar to the type of chips that Apple's actually putting in their own devices. So for instance, if you have a iPhone or an iPod, Apple's already been making their own silicon for about a decade. And so the instruction set is actually very similar. And that's great. But just as an example, I took a look at Android Studio. And so one of the features of the new version of Mac OS 11 is they're using something called Rosetta. And this is actually something they did before. When they did the last transition from the PowerPC to Intel processors, they set it up so that the existing software that users had would run on the new hardware. And so that's actually, it's nice that they have that feature, but there's going to be some things that are going to be kind of tricky for software engineers. So for instance, Android Studio, where in theory it should run fine on the new system on a chip using Rosetta, the thing that may be tricky are the emulators. And I've been reading some stuff online where some people have been having trouble trying to get the emulators, for instance, for Android to work properly on the new hardware. I haven't seen if anybody's had any problems trying to run stuff on the device. I don't imagine they'd have a problem doing that. But if you're trying to write software for both iOS and Android, that may be something that you might want to think about, or just double check and make sure that all that software has been upgraded and is working properly. The other thing too is if you're building stuff for the server, this is where I think a lot about. I know there's a lot of people that build stuff. Maybe they're building stuff in Docker containers. And one of the things Apple's pledged support for has been Docker on the new hardware. That being said, I've just been doing some research on that, and it doesn't look like that there's a version of Docker that's ready. I don't know if they'll be ready by the time the new hardware ships next week, but it's something else to kind of be wary about, because once again, with Docker, essentially you're running virtual machines or a virtual machine with multiple Docker containers on that virtual machine. And so I think right out of the box, you shouldn't have any problems running stuff that's going to be deployed to an ARM-based processor. And if you look at like Amazon Web Service, for example, they actually have a line of servers that you can deploy to that are based off of their ARM-based architecture. And that's probably fine. I know there's work that's being done to make sure that you can run virtual machines that are for Intel-based processors versus ARM-based processors and vice versa. But like I said earlier, it's like they're still, I think, kind of working on that. I don't know if that's been finalized. So that might be something that you might want to just double check on before you buy this type of hardware. The other thing I was also, thinking about is if you're writing software, for instance, for let's say something that's going to run in PHP, like maybe you're working on a WordPress site, or maybe you're using Node.js. Any of these languages that are interpreted really shouldn't have too much difficulty. And I've been reading where I think Node has already been rewritten, or they have a version of Node that will run on the new ARM-based software. But like I said before, if you're building your software and then deploying it to Docker containers, that's something you might want to just double check on and make sure that it's going to work inside of a container. So that being said, it's like, I think if you're going to be doing Apple development, you shouldn't worry too much about it, because you're going to be building on top of the same hardware that Apple's already using. So it should be a nice solution for people that are trying to build stuff that runs on iOS devices, because essentially that's the same processor architecture that Apple's already using. But as far as other things, if you're doing or you're building things in containers, or you're trying to build stuff that it's going to be deployed on something that's running on an Intel or x86 based architecture, you might want to think twice about it. Just make sure that they have all the emulation stuff worked out. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you can give it a thumbs down. I'd like to hear everybody's comments, just because I'm kind of curious, what people's experiences are going to be using the new hardware. I'm personally going to hold off. I'm going to wait and make sure that a lot of the software that I'm using, not so much software development tools, but also some of the solutions, for instance, like Microsoft Office, Adobe Creative Suite. Those things are all rewritten to run on the new architecture. Like I said before, with Rosetta, a lot of these applications and stuff will run without problem, maybe a little bit slower, but I'm personally going to wait and make sure that everything is compatible and working properly with the new hardware. And I think we'll start to see, like probably around early next year, most of the big software suites and stuff have been rewritten to run on the new hardware. So I hope everybody enjoys this video. If you like this channel, please subscribe. I'm looking for more subscribers. And have a nice evening. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.